Hey, isn't this tree beautiful? It looks like it's been struck by lightning, and it's just waiting for a human to turn it into a beautiful work of art that people can enjoy when they're out walking here in nature. I wanted to ask you about Christians, because many Christians will profess that their salvation is complete, that they're fully redeemed and they're lifted out of sin. But there's actually an inner conflict that Christians experience in their life of faith, which must remain active. It's an active life of faith in order to sustain or maintain the gift that they've received through faith. Is because there's many passages in the Bible, for example, that circumcision of the heart can become uncircumcision. Okay, and it's not a one-time set and forget kind of salvation. It's not that your faith itself redeems you, but through your faith you receive the gift of salvation. Okay, and especially around this time of year when we're celebrating the birth of Jesus, and some really important points to consider. And in that also, the spirit, once redeemed, it's lifted up out of darkness, but the flesh remains in sin. Okay, this is very clear from biblical reading. And this contrasts the idea that salvation is somehow complete. Okay, and even though the kingdom of heaven is within you, the reason why Christians cannot establish the kingdom of heaven on earth is because the flesh, which is still on earth, remains in sin. Okay, so this is also why, before a person receives the gift of salvation, they may not even understand that they need it, since their spirit and flesh remain, both in darkness, both in sin, and don't really feel, such a difference. But once their spirit is lifted out of that, there's much more of a contrast between these two parts of themselves. Between their spirit, which is, lifted up, and their flesh, which remains down. So there's they experience much more of a contrast between them, and therefore they struggle a lot more. And they experience much more inner conflict, specifically because their salvation is incomplete. Okay, even there's a passage in the Bible that says circumcision of the heart, spiritual salvation, can become uncircumcision. Okay, so that's why Christians need to maintain an active life of faith, right, through Bible reading, study, prayer, gatherings with other Christians, other believers, in order to, not fall away from faith, not to fall away from God. And this is why you're waiting for the return, so that you can experience true salvation, complete salvation of the flesh as well as the spirit.